Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, Katy.
Welcome. We have quite the conglomeration of paper on the desk.
We do.
This is episode number 286, all about assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess it's more of a sort of a deeper dive. We have talked about assistance before.
Yeah.
I don't know that we had an episode dedicated, but it has come up. And we had some requests to dive into it again. So what we did was send out a survey to our email list, and 170 people responded.
Yeah, we have a lot of data for you
We
today.
have so much data. And speaking of data, if you were here last week, you got all the good data on the profile of home buyers and sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And we did the membership profile as well. To be fair, we just recorded that. And so I think both of our brains are reeling from information.
Numbers and graphs and charts everywhere.
So much graphs, so much charts. But that being said, in the 2024 member profile, which I don't think we said this, is sent out to 150,000 agents and 6,000 participated.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be a cross-section of all the realtors. But there were questions about assistance. Mm-hmm. So I thought we could start there.
Okay.
And just quickly get an overview. So by real estate experience, we're going to go with the median years in the business is 10 if you didn't listen last week. The year before it was 11. Okay. Now, the number of personal assistants for all realtors in this survey, no personal assistant, 86%.
So 86% of realtors
No
who
assistant.
took the survey does not have an assistant.
12% had one assistant.
Okay.
2% had two assistants.
Mm-hmm.
3 or more assistants was only 1% of the respondents.
Oh.
Okay. And it does break it down from broker and sales agent. And obviously, brokers, one assistant, 18%. Where sales agents.
So 18% of brokers had one
assistant. Okay.
Versus what for realtors?
9%.
9%.
9%. Okay. So, okay, that's what that is. Now, what else I can tell you about this is the number of personal assistants by years of experience.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, again, remember, 86% said, I don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Obviously, they're in the business 2 years or less. 95% say no, don't have one. 3 to 5 years, 90% no, don't have one. 6 to 15 years, 87% no. Mm-hmm. 16 years or more, 79%. So you can look at the vice versa, right? So that means that 11%, 16 years or more have one. Actually, I'll just give you the stats. One assistant, 2 years or less, 4%.
So people who've been in the business 2 years.
4% have an assistant.
Wow.
3 to 5 years, 9% have one assistant. 6 to 15 years, 11% have one assistant. And 16 years or more, 17% said they had one assistant.
Okay.
Okay. Let me give you the tasks performed by personal assistants per the survey, which is obviously a bigger cross-section than our 100. Although we did have 170 people respond to our survey, which thank you very much. That helps us to see what our listeners are experiencing.
Do you love listening to the podcast but miss us the rest of the week? Well, you can come follow along on social media and see our faces all week long. Katy, where can they find us?
You're not going to believe this. We're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads, Pinterest, MySpace, Clubhouse, and Vine. Just kidding. We're not on MySpace, Clubhouse, and Vine.
No. But you can follow us at any of those at Hustle Humbly Podcasts. So come hang out with us. We'd love to see you there.
All right. So we're going to go through the tasks performed by the assistants based on highest frequency to lowest. Okay. Process new listings and enter them into the MLS. 82% of responders say that's what their assistant is doing.
Yes.
Process new listings, enter them in the MLS. Next down, 63% send mailings to past clients or prospects.
Okay.
62% manage closing paperwork. 62% prepare comps.
I don't know about that.
I got some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
60% place track advertising of listings. 55% schedule listing presentations, closings, and appointments. Scheduling came up a lot.
I just can't. I have to make my schedule.
You're like, I want to be in charge of that.
Yeah, I don't want people to put things places that I don't want them.
Don't do that. Okay, 46% check MLS for expireds. 45, send progress reports to sellers. Again, this sounds like, I guess that's something you could have an assistant do if you had like a template and they're just filling in the blanks vibe.
Yeah.
45% photograph listings. So the assistant is photographing. But maybe they're just meeting the photographer.
Yeah, maybe it's just meeting the photographer.
40% order inspections, 40% write ads, 26% prepare escrow files, 25% check newspaper websites for sale by owners. That's a waste of time. Per last week's episode.
Do you remember that time I showed a for sale by owner and he was so mean and terrible and yelled at me? And this was years and years ago. And then I had my assistant, because I had an assistant. I was trying to be all official, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, what is something I could do so that my business, give her to do to grow my business?
That
and one
should
of
be
it
the point.
was, I was like, look, these are the zip codes I like. If you see for sale by owners, write this letter to them. And she freaking wrote a letter to that guy.
The mean guy.
Who called and yelled at me again. And was like, I told you to leave me alone. I'm like, I know. I didn't write that letter.
I don't want to talk to you. Nobody wants to talk to you. Okay, so that was 25% were checking for sale by owners. 22% other. I'm not sure what task that is. But 14% prospect for sale by owners. What is cracking me up, y'all? If you can afford an assistant, we learned last week, only 6% of listings are sold for sale by owner.
Yeah.
So you need to be prospecting some other type of person, not a for sale by owner. Okay, now let's go through how they, you're going to like this, licensed versus unlicensed assistant. 54% this assistant is licensed.
Okay.
46 unlicensed.
I think I would have to have a licensed someone.
Okay. Then the salary expenses were either paid by the realtor, paid by the company, or both.
Okay.
And it was pretty evenly split. 31% by the agent, 36 company, 33 both.
Okay.
Okay. Employment, full-time, 47%, part-time, 53%. Okay. Exclusivity, exclusive assistant, 50%, shared with others, 50%.
Wow, 50-50.
So 50-50. This is so fascinating.
I guess that could be like TCs and
right. You're
online
sharing
assistants. Like you're just paying a service.
Yeah. Employment arrangement, independent contractor, 52%, employee, 49%, which I thought was pretty high.
That is high.
That means you're paying their
taxes,
like a real check with taxes taken out and all that jazz. Okay. Compensation structure, hourly, 28%. Salary, 20%. Arrangement varies, 18%. Per task, 20%. And percent of the commission, 14%.
Whoa. That's a huge number.
Yeah. So those were the numbers as reported by the Member Profile 2024, which
from the NAR survey.
Correct. Very helpful for us to have the bigger cross-section, right? So now our 170 responders answered these following questions.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you.
I was looking for our assistant episode.
And?
If you go back to episode 81, is it time for an assistant?
So it talks about this.
Yeah, we talk about how do you know when it's time?
Yeah.
I do feel like people hire assistants prematurely.
Yeah.
Before they need them.
If you don't have systems in place,
yes,
and you just get an assistant, you could have saved yourself some time and some heartache and some money long term by just getting the right systems in place.
Yeah, if you can I think an assistant is sort of like a thing where people think, if I just have that, I'll be good. My business will be good.
Right.
And it's like, you still have to be the boss of your business.
Yeah.
And you have to have your systems in place ready for someone to come in.
For sure.
You can't just be like, okay, assistant, do my work. Fix it.
Make this work.
Make it work.
Make it work.
Here's my desk.
Get me business.
Yeah.
Do all the things.
That's not the answer. I almost feel like you really have to get things tidy before you invite an assistant into your business.
For sure. For sure. And the last one I had was in 2016, and that was the longest. She was working 30 hours a week. That was the biggest time frame, almost basically full time. And during that time, I put so many additional systems into place, including jazzing up and really honing in on my email templates, that when she left, it was summer and it was the busy time of year. I didn't have time to hire another assistant. And then I realized I don't really need this.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing okay.
Right. Once you got organized and got a system in place.
Yeah.
It was very manageable.
For sure.
And that's the thing too. If you're not organized, you're going to have to pay an assistant way more money.
Right.
If things are running themselves and you just need someone to help with the fine-tuned details or checklist items, that's not very expensive.
No, and it shouldn't take them that long.
So not running your business like a business and being disorganized is going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. All right. So our 170 friends who responded to our survey answered the following.
Okay.
Do you have an assistant or transaction coordinator, which we will lovingly call a TC going forward?
TC.
Transaction coordinator. 59% said none. Okay, so they didn't even match up. It was 80-something% that said none on the NAR
So
one.
59% of our listeners
nothing.
Don't have an assistant.
10.7% have an in-person assistant.
Okay. That's where I fall.
Right. 25% have a transaction coordinator. And then this tiny sliver that they didn't even tell me how big it was is the virtual assistant. Okay. Now, if you don't have one, would you want one? Is the question. 42%? Maybe.
Okay.
45%? Yes.
Yes.
45%. And 12%? No, thank you.
Only 12% said no.
I got this. They're like, yeah, no.
I think we all feel like an assistant would be nice.
Right. I'm like, what?
Of course I would love an assistant.
Yeah, you do that stuff I don't want to do. If you do have an assistant, okay, how many hours a week do they work? 60%, 61% said they don't have one, so it doesn't apply. 16% said 0 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
So it's pretty short.
Was that the most?
Yeah.
So the majority of people who have one use their assistant 0 to 5 hours.
Correct.
What's the next level?
6 to 10 hours was 8.5% of the people.
Okay. So
and then that leaves me with, little tiny slivers for the more than 11 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you pay them? 57% pay per transaction. 27% were paying hourly and 15.7% salary. Okay. Now, those are our pie charts. I had one that didn't fit on there. I'm going to tell you. If you're paying by the hour, how much are you paying? Okay. So if you are paying by the hour, 48% said $11 to $20 an hour.
Yeah.
That seems like the right
that does
range.
Seem,
$21 to $30 an hour was 26%.
Yeah.
$31 to $40 an hour, 7%. $41 to $50 an hour, 7%. And I left behind the people less than $10 an hour, 11%.
Wow.
So it was a pretty big number there too.
I struggle. So, I got my first assistant when I was pregnant with Haven. No, after I had Haven.
Okay.
Because I had my friends that got me through my maternity leave.
Right.
And then I was back to work and I got Whitney. And Whitney worked with me for several years. And that was great. I realized I can never go back to not having some sort of help.
Yeah.
And my assistants, and I have one now also, my assistants are for non-client facing.
Right. I came across that a lot.
Yes. So I don't want, me personally, I don't want a online virtual assistant emailing the lender and me at the same time being like, hey, this is Alyssa's personal assistant. How's the loan going?
Right.
I would rather someone be like, hey, it's time to check on that loan.
You just want them to trigger you to do it.
Yeah, or put it in my calendar, or I'll put it in my calendar. But I don't want it to be like, this person must be copied on all emails, because then I feel like it's too out of sight, out of mind, because I'm like, oh, the TC has it.
Right.
And it's not about being a control freak, which maybe a little bit of I do like to be, but I want to be in the know of my business.
Right. I think also because you're building a relationship business, not just with your clients, also with your lenders and your vendors, and you're you want to have that forward facing experience and be building relationships.
Yeah.
You're not trying to put that off on someone else.
So to go back to the payment, I think that it's still always evolving.
Yeah.
Depending on cost of living. Are they driving a lot this week?
Mm-hmm.
So my goal where I'm at now is I'm paying a certain amount per week.
Okay.
A minimal amount per week. Let's call it $100 a week.
Okay.
Then if there's other bigger tasks within that week, I pay per task.
Okay. About how many hours a week would you say they are working?
Some weeks I would say like 5 to 8.
Okay.
I think that's probably my average.
Okay. All right.
And it could probably be done quicker.
What I would like to tell you is that the person who asked a question and what we get the most is the pay. How much do they work?
Right.
How much do they get paid? How much do they work? How much do they get paid? If they're paying by salary, this is what our 22 responders said. $700 per month, $400 per transaction.
$400 per transaction?
Yeah.
Wow.
Then this one said, I'm not sure, I don't pay them. And they support a team with about 10 full-time agents. So I'm guessing in the $30,000 range, but we don't actually know. Okay. I pay a combo of hourly and bonus per closing. So if I don't have closings, my payroll is less. And if she's more efficient, I should have more closings.
That's a great idea. It's a great point. Like a bonus every closing.
$100 per transaction. She's heard other agents do $250 to $300 per transaction. This person does $2,500 a month. $25 an hour for 25 hours a week. Like it's worked out that way.
Yeah.
$2,000 per month through a VA company. So that's a virtual assistant. $180 every
How much a month?
$2,000.
$2,000 a month for a virtual assistant? Whoa.
That felt like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how many, it doesn't say how many hours. $180 every 2 weeks for a virtual assistant per transaction for TC, and showing partner $100 per transaction. That doesn't seem like a lot. If I get a showing partner for $100 a transaction.
Yeah.
This one pays $51,000 a year.
Wow.
Brokerage team pays, the brokerage pays them. And then the brokerage is paying them and including it in the split. And one said $450 per transaction. So it is a range. I feel like I'm not answering the question for the person who asked.
Yeah.
It's a range. I will say that it appears the most likely thing is to be paying per transaction. First of all, that seems, and the nice thing about that is you wouldn't be paying if you're not producing.
Right.
Okay. So that seems like the most common, and then hourly. And then the most common price, it was between under $20 an hour.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like if I'm happy with my assistant, I want to pay them well.
Right. You don't want them to leave.
I don't want you to leave. There is so much turnover, and nothing is more stressful than retraining. And, it's so time consuming. That's why, at first with my newest assistant, I like having newer agents as assistants.
Right.
Because the goal is that you're not super busy because you're new. Hopefully you'll want to be with me at least 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Like I think that's a good chunk of time to be with the same person. Sure. I would love it to be longer, but I also understand that they're growing. But that allows them to be licensed. Mm-hmm. They're excited to work with an agent that they can learn from, and they're making a little bit of extra money. But it's also not their sole income. Like they're also trying to get their own transactions.
Right.
So the way I have it structured right now is like $100 a week plus any additional extra tasks.
Right.
So if we have a new listing coming up, I've already been to the house twice and like done the staging and this and that. She goes, well, when I say staging, I mean with the seller.
Okay.
If the house is going to be staged with our staging stuff, like our, remember, we don't stage with furniture.
Yeah, you're just doing like the...
Yeah, orchids, towels,
the added
bookshelves.
Right.
She can do that. But on photo day, she meets the photographer because I make my sellers leave for photo day, and she does the input sheet.
Yeah.
So that's like a big chunk of time, right?
Yeah.
So if we have a new listing, I'll add $50.
Okay.
If she has to help me with showings or unstaging a house, maybe that's an extra $25.
I see.
So it's just like different tiers.
Okay. And who's recording that? Who's keeping track of what's going on?
Well, I pay her weekly because of that. So every week I log in and I say $100 plus 50 for shadow
you're
drive.
just be like reminding yourself, like you're not keeping a running tally anywhere. She's not turning in hours per se.
Right. No, we're not
hours.
tracking hours.
Okay.
Because I've done that before too, and that was a nightmare.
So you're paying per task.
And I feel like it's hard to track hours in real estate because one task may take 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's the stopping your day, getting in the computer, getting the task done. The mental load of real estate
is heavy. Yeah.
So I'm like, who's going to do that for $3?
No.
Like no one's going to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I learned about tracking hours.
Yeah, it didn't.
That didn't go well. And it was a headache not only to me, but to the assistant.
Right.
So I'm like, if you're guaranteed $100 a week, and then I'm like, oh, you did this and this. I asked you to do these 3 things this week. So here's your other 3.
Got it.
So some weeks it's just $100.
Yeah.
Some weeks it's more. Some weeks it's gone up to like $200 that week or $250.
Got it.
And I think paying weekly helps keep me
in check,
with what she did that week.
It's fresh in your mind.
I don't want to have to go back a month
and figure it out.
Then I would have to track everything.
Yeah.
So
that would be a pain.
That's how it's going right now. And I think it's going well. And if she drives somewhere super far away, like I give her some extra for gas.
Yeah.
It's like keep them happy and appreciated. And then on top of payment, I include sign calls.
Got it.
Or like if somebody comes through a website.
Without a referral fee.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. I have to share with you, in getting the survey, our sweet listener, Debbie, is a mother-daughter team.
Okay.
And she sent us the most fantastic thing. It is how she and her daughter decided what they were going to do and if they needed an assistant.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what she said. We recently completed an exercise where we listed out all the things we do in our business. We put a check mark next to the ones we individually loved, loathed, or were okay with doing. This allowed us to see where we could divide and conquer. So how they figured out how are we going to divide the task between the two of us based on our skills or passions, or where we could delegate. So if they want to get someone else, even if we love doing it, we can do many things, but we can't do all things. As she heard her,
we can do anything, but not
can't
everything.
Do everything. They created this task audit sheet and thought they would share it. Okay, so she sent me the actual. Oh, I know, right?
Oh my, that's beautiful.
Debbie sent the most beautiful sheet where she put out the task.
I want to look at it.
Here, you can look at it. She put out the task and then they had to check off in the column who liked, if they both liked something, if one of them liked it, or if nobody liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was how they figured out how to divide power and I guess hire out.
Yeah.
Give us an example.
Okay, I was trying to find something they both loathe.
What did they both loathe?
Hold on, it's so tiny. Let's see. All right. Magical activities like pop buys. They both loathe doing those and planning them. I would too.
Yeah. Okay. They said thank you.
You have to go to the store. You have to buy 50 wrapping papers.
Show up to people's houses.
You have to show up to people's houses with tags and make it cute.
Yeah, they were like, no thanks.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that. Update HomeBot and CMAs.
Okay.
They both loathe.
What do they both love? Tell me something they both love.
Okay. They both love listing presentation prep.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Me too. They both love buyer consultation prep. They both love shopping for closing gifts.
Cute. Love that.
I don't. They both love assembling closing gifts.
Oh, fun.
They both love new client onboarding, which is like adding their lead to Flowdesk and doing their whole systems.
Okay.
So the systems part of having a new person.
I love it.
Quarterly accelerator.
I love it. I guess my point was we don't have to go through their whole sheet.
Yeah.
But they also had so their columns were the task. They were the description of the task, the category that fell into, love, loathe, and delegate. So the last column is delegate, and they had a checkbox off of everything that they wanted to delegate.
Could delegate,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So ordering gifts. So if they have to shop, that's one thing. But if they have to order it, like here they have like crumble cookies or things like that. Like they don't want to have to order it. It's just
not a fun shopping.
No, it's not fun shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Something else they would be able to delegate, even though they both love buyer consultation preparation, it's something that could be delegated.
Okay.
Like making your buyer folders and listing
once
folders.
they're there, it's more of a menial task.
Yeah. Buyer showing prep. I would love to delegate that. They both hate doing that, and they checked that they were going to delegate it. Like printing out the MLS sheets, putting them in order.
Scheduling the appointment.
Yeah. All of that.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably have to schedule it, but just getting it ready. Signs that could be delegated per their task.
I love the idea of just writing down all of your tasks first.
Yeah.
Just write them all down.
See what you're actually doing. And I feel like it would take maybe even 2 or 3 weeks of tracking yourself.
You're going to have to track.
Like you're going to sit down and make an initial list and be like, well, that's not that long. And then as you go through your days, you'll be like, ooh, I need to add that to the list.
Exactly.
I need to do that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the last 2 questions from our survey were, if you could get an assistant or were getting an assistant, what would you want them to do?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. If you do have one, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So why don't you share with us the things people want to get an assistant for?
Okay. So if you're thinking about getting an assistant or have one, these are things that people want to have an assistant for.
Right.
I tried to delete the redundant ones because we got 127 responses.
Right.
Okay. Paperwork, emails, social media, CRM organization, listing input, marketing, scheduling appointment, creating emails, taking care of closing gifts, putting out signs, non-client facing tasks, office organizing, making my listing books, streamlining systems, keeping track of all deadlines, especially collecting receipts, doing tasks in a timely fashion so I don't have to scramble every time, scheduling contractors like photography or house cleaners, all the behind the scene tasks after an offer is accepted, such as sending out email templates. Like, you know, when you first get an offer under contract, it's so much to do.
It's a lot of work.
All these emails need to go out. Mm-hmm. Remind me of documents needed, check for compliance on those documents that no signatures are missing. Brochures and mailing, cooking, cleaning, dog walking. Sorry, couldn't resist. Haha. How to organize my leads. Like, I guess that's like BYOB sort of. Like, is this need to go in my database?
Right, where am I putting these people? Yeah. Okay.
Handling emails, staying on top of deadlines, clerical work. Is that word still used?
Clerical.
Handwriting cards, birthday and house anniversaries, website stuff. Even things like making seasonal guidebooks, building out tabs on my website. Lead capture tools like landing pages, link trees, etc.
Wow.
Like you could really do
so many things.
So many things they could do. Tasks that are tedious or monotonous or tasks that I'm not naturally good at. Ads, pop buys, admin work, cold calling. That's funny. Oh, obtaining reviews for me. So sort of like building out your Google profile.
Yeah. Okay.
We're almost done, guys. Property research. Okay. I wrote down this because I use my assistant for this a lot. Mm-hmm. When I'm working with a new buyer and they send me like 10 houses, mm-hmm. I ask Ellie to go into MLS to make notes on all of them for me. Because, I mean, that's going to take me like 45 minutes to an hour.
I wondered how you had time for so many of those. This makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I do them. But if it's a long list, I'm like, hey, I need
like
this
check
done.
the PDDs type stuff.
Yes. And I have a list. I have a little template of things I want her to check.
I love that.
Sending newsletters, QuickBooks, getting property information while I'm on the go, event planning, a second set of eyes on all my contracts, send me a list of weekly what's needed. So she does that for me every Monday. I get a weekly summary of all my stuff.
Like what's needed?
All my actives. It's sort of like a recap of my Trello.
Okay.
But then it's like she ends with, do I need to order any closing gifts? Are you doing any open houses?
Oh, for each one.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Open house preparation. Like she'll put out all my signs, run all the ads, update the MLS.
Yeah.
Like we have a checklist for that too.
Okay.
Open house preparation, anniversary gifts, DocuSign, sending things for electronic signature.
Whew.
And that was like half.
Yeah.
of things that they wish their assistant could do.
And so many of them were repetitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like there was a lot of repeats in my, what does the assistant do? And it is marketing, social media, scheduling, document prep or keeping up with documents, and then just general transaction coordinator. There was a lot of people who had a transaction coordinator.
Yeah.
I think the easiest way for anyone to figure this out is to do what Debbie did.
Yeah.
List out your tasks.
This is beautiful.
List out everything you do in your business or everything you want to do in your business. And then you go back through and you label them as, I like this, I don't like this, or however you want to label it. And then I could delegate this. Actually, in task frequency, when we do that episode on task frequency, we talk about this a little bit, I think. In agent systems, when I cover it and go through the task frequency, it has your tasks broken down by, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. And the exercise is to go through it and mark off all the things that you can batch, things that you can delegate, things that same vibes.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll need to share that task frequency list again.
Yeah, that'll be a good episode to go re-listen to
because that will help jog your memory or help you figure out what are the list of things you want to do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the people who responded and said what their assistant is doing. Okay. Again, very similar to what people wished they had an assistant doing is what the people who have an assistant are actually getting done.
Yeah, and I feel like we have read things off in a list format.
It feels that way.
So maybe we don't need to.
I'm not going to go deep into it.
Okay.
But how about this? I'll give you one that responded with what I would say is sometimes this happens. I think the best label would be transaction coordinator. Yeah. But she does social media marketing and keeping up with my online leads until they are ready to view. She does help with keeping clients under contract updated during the process, but does not fill out paperwork, get signatures, do showings, or any of the day-to-day running around.
Right.
Okay. I really regret hiring someone and am struggling with the letting this person go because I don't want to hurt feelings or cause a big blowout. You didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I didn't.
I know. She looks at herself as being an equal in the team I created and often calls it our business. But in reality, I'm the only one licensed and doing the hard work. That's in quotes, hard work.
Yeah, like the real estate.
Right. And funding the entire thing.
Yeah.
It's gotten a bit out of control and I don't know how to reel it back in. This is on my mind daily. And I feel like because I'm stressing over this, my productivity has definitely gone down because I'm looking for a way out.
Oh, no.
I know I need to just rip off the Band-Aid, but I don't want to hurt the friendship. Help. I'm like, what are we going to do?
Help. I know.
Alyssa?
I think that's a tough one, but I think it's a good thing to hear that this happens. And I know this isn't an episode about teams, but we've read very similar things about if somebody leaves a team, who gets to keep the database?
Oh, yeah.
Do they take something with them that they shouldn't?
Right.
All those things.
There's turmoil.
Yeah, it's always a tough transition.
Yeah.
I don't think hiring an assistant is something that should be taken lightly.
For sure.
Especially if you've never had one.
Lest you end up like this poor, sweet person.
Start off very slow. Start off by maybe just finding a new agent in your office or I even had an agent one time that was my assistant for a minute that wasn't with my brokerage.
Yes.
So it's like, it just worked out.
Right. And I've had great assistants and I've had not so great assistants. And I will say that the majority of mine early on were more like internships. So they were only usually planning to stay for a semester. Yeah. And so then you could, if you liked them, you could convince them to stay. Or if you didn't, it'd be like, okay, we're parting ways. No big deal. But I mean, hiring and especially firing is really tough.
It is so hard.
And the worst part of all of that is that being in an uncomfortable and unproductive work environment is even tougher. So like this person is doing worse than if they were just on their own.
Yeah.
Because they're stressed every day about how do I get out of this situation I don't want to be in anymore. So I think you're right to say, yeah, it sounds great. Let's have an assistant. But then it really does make you think maybe that paper transaction TC isn't a bad idea.
I also think just starting smaller and adding tasks as you go.
Yeah.
Seeing how they're doing with carrying the load.
Yeah, you got to ease into it.
Yeah, but I think sometimes people think, oh, I need to make this super official.
Yeah, you're going to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if there's anything else.
Let me read this one to you.
Please go.
Someone wrote in, I have both a transaction coordinator in town and a virtual assistant. My TC offers a full service package where she does some of the communicating with my clients, title and lender, as well as making sure that we're in compliance. My virtual assistant handles all my marketing, social media, video editing, text blasting, and figuring out new tech platforms to maximize my time. Back-end stuff, uploading listings to MLS and SkySlope, closing out files, rarely drafting documents, if I'm traveling and cannot get to a computer.
I like hearing the way it's broken down between those two positions.
Right.
That also alleviates you from having one assistant doing all of this. And then if they leave, it's like the whole thing crashes and burns.
Correct.
So it's like, well, this person's doing this person's doing that. Probably a little bit more affordable that way.
Yeah.
Breaking it down instead of being, I just remember feeling when I had one assistant who was working a lot of hours, like I knew I wasn't paying a lot. Mm-hmm. And I just remember being like, oh, I really wish I could pay more. Mm-hmm. This is the only job that they have. Like I just, for whatever reason, felt like a level of guilt or like I just wished I could do something. So I think having separate might be nice in that you're like, well, that's okay. Or having an intern. We've had real huge success with an intern that's in school. This isn't like, trying to sustain a family. They're just trying to learn. They're excited about the job typically and that environment of learning. And maybe it doesn't bother them that it's a lower pay.
Yeah.
I mean,
it just depends on what's their situation. Is this just extra, Or, do you know how valuable it would have been to do that for somebody before you were licensed?
You would learn so much.
Oh.
You would learn so much. I have an interesting way one is broken down. I'm a licensed agent and part-time real estate photographer who also works as an assistant for an agent in the same brokerage. Mm. As an assistant, I prep all listing and purchase documents, do some of the photography, show houses when the agent isn't available, cover for or is on call when they're out of town, sets up listings on the MLS, and handles updates to the MLS, create and send mailers, postcards, creates and mails year-end thank you letters to clients, schedules some inspections, forwards paperwork for listings purchases to office manager for the broker's files, updates and follows up with on anything missing, forwards purchase paperwork and does some follow-up with title companies, making sure they have all necessary documentation. She's doing it all.
Yeah.
Mortgage payoffs, etc. Gathers information and documents from condo associations if needed, attends all office meetings and functions, and helps keep the agent organized. It's like a superwoman.
And this is an assistant someone has?
Yeah, a licensed assistant. See, now, I do think that's probably where it's at for most of us. If you can get a licensed assistant, that means they can run and do the showing.
Yeah.
They can meet your, inspector if needed. Like, they can open these doors and it just opens a different world. They can take these calls and tell people about your listing. Mm-hmm. Your unlicensed assistant can't go, answer that call and give all the information. I think they're allowed to do an open house, but it's very specific about what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
What's your preference, licensed or unlicensed?
Definitely licensed.
Yeah.
I need them to have that lockbox. Or, if there is a time, like if I'm out of town and I have to let somebody else show, I'm like, hey, listen, my assistant can show you the house.
Yeah.
I do need that help.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important.
Here's an interesting take. Frankly, not sure the TC is worth it unless I'm swamped, and then it really helps.
Yeah.
I don't use them on uncomplicated cash transactions. Mainly, they organize the files, making sure they get where they need to go and aren't missing signatures, and then at certain checkpoints throughout the transaction, send the emails. These are things I used to always do myself and find easy to do, but as a solo agent, when very busy, sometimes it's just nice to have another person on the team. So making sure nothing falls through the cracks. That's a great point too.
Yeah.
If you go the route of a TC or someone that you pay per transaction, when you're slow, you can handle it. You don't need them. When you've got several transactions and you're busier, or maybe you're having a busier season in your life, then you use them.
Right.
It's a low commitment
I think
way to
that's
get
great.
what you need.
Well, one of our people that wrote in has 3 unlicensed assistants and 1 licensed assistant.
Wow.
And it's just, to me, I don't know that I could pay 4 people enough to make it worth it for them.
I would really want to know what the transaction load is on this.
How do you pay 4 people enough money to stay?
They're not. And that's why the wouldn't it be better to have 2 people making more than 4
Right.
people making
Yes.
less?
Yes.
It feels like you'd be more likely to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've cracked the code on this, but for years I've been like, what is the code on getting a real estate admin or assistant that stays long term?
Yeah.
I've tried them all. Single mom,
Mm-hmm.
more like a retiree, new agent, young,
Right. It's a short-term position.
it's a short-term
I
position.
think if you make it to 4 or 5 years, you are lucky.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm trying to think if I know anybody who has an assistant that has been there longer
Like
than
long
that.
term.
And not a team,
Yeah.
an assistant.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know.
No. And when you think about it, I think at the end of the day, eventually all assistants will go, you're making this and I'm making this. And I now basically know how to do what you're doing because I've been watching for so long.
Here's the thing though, but they don't.
They don't.
Some people are made to be really awesome assistants.
I agree. That's part of whatever personality.
Yeah, the personality
Mhm.
type. I mean, they could. That's my hope with a lot of the new ones.
Yeah.
But they,
Go, spread your wings.
do what I'm doing.
Succeed.
Yes, but it's just, I've had so many.
Yeah. I think the best thing that I would recommend too, if you're going to have an assistant, is to take the time, whether it's your first or your 5th one, to really get aggressive about describing your standard operating procedures.
Mhm.
What are the SOPs for every piece of your business so that when said assistant inevitably leaves or you have to
Mhm.
let go or they just move on, it's so much easier to train the next person if you're like, you're going to do this. Here's the
open
description
house
of that.
checklist for every single open house. This is what we do.
Yeah, this is what you do.
Here's the new listing checklist. Like everything needs to be.
Because you almost need to also make your SOP for how do I train a new assistant?
Yeah,
What are the steps? What do they need to know?
right.
Because it's the training that's the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
I think it's great we did this episode. Our notes, our spreadsheet has been pretty full of questions about assistants.
I know.
And so, you and I are both solo agents. We don't have a team.
Yeah.
And we have experience with assistants.
For sure.
But everybody does it so differently.
So, that's what I have most noticed from this.
Yeah. I mean,
Everyone does it differently. Everyone pays differently. The structures are like all over the board.
Mhm.
But it was helpful to just be like, oh, there's so many possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
There is just not one right way to do this.
Yeah. You have permission to do what you need to do for your business.
Whichever works for you. Start small, work up to.
Mhm.
That would be the number one tip.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in a situation you're going to regret later.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I want to say a final thank you to everyone who responded to the survey. It's always nice to source this kind of data from our actual listeners because that typically means they are like-minded to
Mhm.
us, but it's still helpful to see the realm of what's possible.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, shall we do a toast?
Yes.
Okay, goodbye.
Hey, it's Kizzy Alexander. I am from Pearland, Texas. Today I am wanting to toast my super sweet friend, Christy Perry, who's also from Pearland, Texas. Christy is out here killing it. She is being an inspiration to other newbie realtors. She's incredibly supportive and affirming. And I just want her to know that everything that God has promised her is going to come to pass because He is a promise keeper and He doesn't play about us.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hustle Humbly podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to ratethispodcast.com/Hustle Humbly and leave us a review or drop a comment if you're listening on Spotify.
If you have an episode topic or someone you'd like to toast on the show, please email us at team@hustlehumblypodcast.com.
Find us on social media at Hustle Humbly Podcast. Don't forget to find all of the free resources at hustlehumblypodcast.com/resources.
See you next week.